the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact, and I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 38, guys, we got a good topic for you coming up this week. But a couple housekeeping things. We have Revved Up 906 merch. We have officially partnered up with Grind Clothing Co., a clothing brand locally here in Michigan, and we have bucket hats for sale. Whether you're golfing or you're at the beach, you can rep your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast. We also have hats that look very similar to what Ryan is wearing and what is right here. So go check out hats like this because, I mean, these are fire, come on. We also have shoes for sale. So if you want Revved Up 906 shoes, make sure to message us on Instagram and we will get some personal info and they will be shipped off to you right away, and pricing determines on what size shoe you have. Another thing, make sure to like and subscribe because the Revved Up 906 podcast is growing, the numbers are going up, so we appreciate you, but make sure to smash that like button because that like button, when you hit it, pushes us out into the YouTube algorithm and more people see us on their pages. So thank you for hitting that like button, and then make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel because you need to be in the know with all the Detroit Pistons content, and we can help with that. Also, one more thing, Campfire CoWorks is one of our partners that we've partnered up with recently. That is where our podcast studio is located here downtown Marquette, Michigan. Campfire CoWorks is an office sharing space that can help you grow your new or local business, and they have a lot of different networking opportunities. And then also, if you need an office or a place to start your new business, Campfire CoWorks can help with that. So thank you to them, and make sure to go follow them on every single social media platform. Episode number 38, let's get into it. This week, we have talked about how we are always paying attention to what the fans have to say. And we are always in the know of the hot takes that are happening. And something that we wanted to talk about today is fan hot take trade opportunities and what trades you, the fans, are talking about and what some journalists are talking about. So we are going to talk about these trades that could possibly happen from the fans' perspective, and then we are going to give our humble opinion and our reaction to those trades. So we're actually going to start off with a 3-team trade. The Pistons would receive Evan Fournier, Tim Hardaway Jr., and a 2024 second-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. The Knicks would receive our beloved James Wiseman and our 2020 draft pick Killian Hayes, and the Mavericks would receive Bojan Bogdanovic and the 2024 second-round pick. The Pistons giving up a lot in this trade. I'm not sure what the fan is thinking here, but my initial reaction, I like Tim Hardaway Jr. Evan Fournier, a solid vet, but to give up James Wiseman, Killian Hayes, 2 young 20-year-olds, Ryan, what are some of your first thoughts on this trade?
Well, I'm fine with giving up Bojan to get Evan Fournier and Tim Hardaway Jr. and then the second round pick and the first round pick. I'm fine with that. But I think it gets to the point where it's a little too much when you throw in James Wiseman and Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if it was Bojan and Killian for maybe all of that, but I think that's even pushing it because I think we should give back more than what we've been getting in that sense. But I think giving up James Wiseman is the immediate no for this trade for me. And that's just because like the amount of talent we'd be giving up versus what we'd receive, it's not even close. I love Evan Fournier. He's an instant bucket. He's one of the best shooters in the league. Tim Hardaway Jr., go blue baby, but just those 2 guys and a second round pick and a first round pick that wouldn't be until 2027. That's not even anywhere near our range of when we'd actually want that pick to be.
Yeah.
So it's just a no.
Yeah, for me, we saw last year Evan Fournier average 6 points throughout his career, averaging 14 points, like your notes say. I'm stealing some of Ryan's notes there. So I like what Evan Fournier has to offer. Yeah. He's going to give you at times what Bojan has to give. But even Bojan, he can pretty much regularly give you 22 to 24 points a game. And so a guy like Bojan, you know, he's pushing his 30s now. I understand he's getting up there in age, but he can still give you an offensive boost. And I think he's a hot commodity in today's league. If we're giving up a guy like Bojan, I kind of want more than Evan Fournier. I like his play. I like Tim Hardaway Jr. He's still almost pushing 30, but a guy like Bojan is consistent and he can give you buckets consistently. So I want to make sure that if we're going to be dealing out Bojan, we need to get some hot commodities for him because he can help these championship level teams get pushed to the next level and really give that boost that some teams need. I could see him going to maybe a backup to Kevin Durant at the Phoenix Suns or a backup to Jason Tatum in Boston. That might be, you know, these contender teams might need a guy like Bojan, and they might be able to and willing to give up some pretty big pieces to get a guy like Bojan. So I just don't really think it's worth it, you know, but I see where the fans coming from, getting 2 vet shooting presents and a couple first-round picks. You know, we're kind of running out of all of our draft picks these next couple of years that are guaranteed. So I don't mind trying to stuff the board with future draft picks, but in the end, I just don't know if it's really worth it. The second trade we're going to look at today that a fan proposed on Twitter is going to be the Pistons would receive JaVale McGee, Tim Hardaway Jr., DeAndre Hunter, and then the Mavericks would receive Clint Capella, and then the Atlanta Hawks would receive Detroit Pistons Bojan Bogdanovic, Killian Hayes, and a 2027 first-round pick. Now, JaVale McGee obviously making big splashes in the slam dunk contest 10 years ago. Tim Hardaway Jr., obviously a lot of Pistons fans want to bring the Michigan basketball player back with Tim Hardaway Jr. I do like DeAndre Hunter, though. He's going to be a little bit more refined than Asar Thompson is going to be right away just because he has a couple more years under his belt. What are some of your thoughts on this trade, Ryan?
Well, my immediate answer is no.
Yeah.
Just because I think this trade is actually worse than the first one.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't be getting picks, and Evan Fournier is a much better player than Van McGee. Granted, they played 2 different positions, but still. And even Evan Fournier is better than DeAndre Hunter. So what we'd be getting is pretty much, I love JaVale McGee. He's a Michigan native. We're always going to support our guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he's kind of like one of those players where you could easily just cut him loose, and it's fine. And then DeAndre Hunter, I honestly think Killian is better than he is right now. And that's a bold take given the fact that DeAndre Hunter, you have him averaging 14 points in his career. But it's because of the situations he's been in. He's been in, granted, it's kind of weird to compare players and it's never fair. But in his situations, he's been on teams where they don't need him to be good.
Mm-hmm.
They just throw him in late and he gets the bucket. That's what he is. Killian Hayes, he's a totally different player. They're 2 different play styles. So you can't expect Killian to have that stat line or anything near or close to it. But you can expect Killian to do Killian things. And so, to me, I feel like we'd just be giving up too much again to get 3. Tim Hardaway Jr. obviously would be the starter out of the 3, but essentially a starter and 2 bench sitters.
Right.
I don't want that in return for a starter in Bojan and a potential starter in Killian Hayes. And I'm not saying Killian Hayes is going to start anytime soon, but he could start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so make sure to comment below what you think of these trades, if you agree with us or you disagree. I know a lot of Pistons fans like Tim Hardaway Jr., JaVale McGee. I like his game, right? He's a stat sheet stuffer. He can get those boards, get the points in the paint when needed. But we already have so many centers, and I prefer to have a young center in per se Marvin Bagley than a JaVale McGee because his ceiling is much higher. Also, younger players are a little bit more hungry when it comes to getting better. JaVale McGee has peaked. I think he's at the best he'll ever be. A couple of years ago, I think he's not the JaVale McGee he was with the Denver Nuggets when he could jump out of the gym. I think he's a good player for a contending team, but for the Pistons that are trying to create this young core of a high ceiling, we're trying to make sure these guys reach their potential. I think guys like JaVale McGee might stunt James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, and just take minutes away from those guys. I'd rather lose a couple more years than taking a guy like JaVale McGee. You know, he's not going to be a difference maker, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will say with these two trades that we've talked about now, honestly, I'd rather get one very solid player and a bunch of picks than get a good player and two players that you could pretty much cut ties with at any point in time. Plus, when you look at our roster, we have a logjam in the big department. We have a logjam in the guard department. Where are we weak? We're weak at the wing. That's what I was trying to say. We're weak at the wing.
Yep.
And Tim Hardaway Jr. obviously would fit that role every single time, compared to DeAndre Hunter, who kind of plays the three, but he's really just a guard. JaVale McGee, obviously a center, and that won't work. And then you even go back to the first trade. Evan Fournier is guard. Tim Hardaway Jr. would fill that void again, but still, it's kind of like I don't want to take on a ton of vet players right now because obviously it's been proven that a vet team doesn't win. When you look at the Lakers, they tried to do that recently and had an all-vet team. It did not work. They were one of the worst teams in the NBA. It just doesn't work. You need to have young guys in there, and obviously we would have young guys in there because when you look at our roster, we're one of the youngest in the league by far. But I'd rather have young talent on our team than a bunch of vets that could be past their prime, pretty much. So,
with these first two trades, we see the Pistons receiving Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, we already have a very Hardaway Jr.-esque player in Alec Burks. If you had to choose between those two guys, who would you pick, Alec Burks or Tim Hardaway Jr.?
I would take Tim Hardaway Jr. And that's not a discredit to Alec Burks at all, but I think they're two kind of different players. Alec Burks is more of a catch and shoot, I'm going to beat you off the dribble. Tim Hardaway Jr. is more of an all-around kind of player. He's going to get you a board when you need a board, he's going to make the pass when you need a pass, and he's going to take the shot when you need a shot. That's what Tim Hardaway Jr. does. Alec Burks obviously has great handles, can catch and shoot, can shoot off the dribble, can make plays, and his defense is solid. It's not a fair comparison for the two of them because they're almost identical in their play styles, but still different. Tim Hardaway Jr. just has that size up on him, but I would rather take Tim Hardaway Jr.
The next fan-proposed trade is, and this is an interesting one, it seems like in all these trades, the fans are willing to just give up so many Pistons players, like they're willing just to flop everything. But with this trade, the Pistons would receive, and this is intriguing, Kevin Huerter, the ginger sharpshooter, and the Kings would receive DeMar DeRozan, and then the Bulls would receive Marvin Bagley, Davion Mitchell, Kessler Edwards, and a lottery pick from the Detroit Pistons. Dude, your initial reaction to this trade?
All right, first off, Kevin Huerter, I love you. You are by far one of the best shooters in the league.
Yeah.
There's no, I do.
I know.
And he's a Big Ten player. He went to Maryland.
Yep.
But the one reason why I think this is unrealistic has kind of nothing to do with the Pistons outside of the lottery protected pick. Because I don't want them giving up a lottery protected pick.
Ever give up a lottery
No.
pick?
Yeah, I mean, there's a for sure sign that we would be bad and we'd get the pick back, but I'm not taking that chance. But I think the reason why it's a no is because of the Bulls. I don't think they're going to give up DeMar DeRozan to get Marvin Bagley, Davion Mitchell, and Kessler Edwards on a lottery protected pick. There's no way they're giving up DeMar to get all of that. Because when you look at their roster, there's a lot of weak spots. Let's be realistic here. But there's a lot of strong spots, and their strongest spot is DeMar DeRozan, arguably, over Zach LaVine. And so I don't think they're going to give up on him just yet because I think the way their roster is built, they just need a couple more guys, honestly. So I just don't see this happening unless the Bulls just feel like, yeah, let's just go into a rebuild. But they were on a rebuild for a while before they put DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine and then Nikola Vucevic together. They were in a rebuild there, and they couldn't handle it. They wanted to get the guys.
Right.
And all they want to do is win. That's what Chicago does, is all they want to do is win. So I don't see this trade happening just because of that component, but I would very much welcome in Kevin Huerter. with all of us giving up Marvin Bagley alone, I'd be happy with that.
And whatever fan proposed this trade, something they have to keep in mind is, say we do trade for Kevin Herter. Well, we just signed and traded for Joe Harris. And then we have Bojan on our roster. So then what happens at the 3-point line? Because then there's just this massive logjam with Kevin Herter, Joe Harris, Marvin Bagley. Yes, are they all three of them very good defensive threat, 3-point threats? Yes. But how do you make that work? Because we saw it with the prime Miami Heat team when they added Ray Allen to their roster. They needed that 3-point shot. If you added 2 more Ray Allens to that team, does it work the same? I don't know. So it's hard to say, but that's something you have to keep in mind when you're adding these trades. What kind of personnel are you adding? Yes, Kevin Herter is a young, probably kind of like a young Bojan Bogdanovic. He's probably going to have a similar role in his NBA career when he's become an NBA veteran. But how do you make that work? Because those are 3 small forwards that you really just, how do you make that work? And that's given a guy like Monty Williams kind of a hard task. The next trade, the last trade we're going to talk about, a fan proposed trade on Twitter. Get ready because this is a 4-team trade, so just be prepared, listen close. The Pistons would receive former Detroit Piston Tobias Harris. The Clippers would receive James Harden and a 2029 first-round pick. The 76ers would receive Bojan Bogdanovic, Norman Powell, Marcus Morris, Danilo Gallinari, and a 2028 first-round pick and a 2029 first-round pick. So the 76ers hauling in. And then the Wizards would receive Marvin Bagley and a 2024 first-round pick. Ryan, I know you're a Tobias Harris fan. What's your initial reaction to this trade?
Yes. No, that's my initial reaction.
Okay.
I honestly think every single team wins in this trade. There's not one loser. Obviously, we've given up Bojan and Marvin Bagley, but that's it, and I'm fine with that because let's be realistic here. Bojan is pretty much out the door already because everybody's been talking about him getting traded since the trade deadline this past season.
Yeah.
And it's not ever going to be not talked about. I think he's always just going to be on the trade bubble no matter what. And it's just more of what can you offer me to get him off the table? And Marvin Bagley, I love Marvin Bagley. I think he can still be a key role player on a contending team. I think that's what he can be, but he's not what we need right now. It's tough because a lot of Pistons fans and a lot of fans out there think he's a bust. I don't think he's a bust yet because he's still very young, relatively speaking, but he hasn't had the opportunity to really shine. And yeah, you may be going, well, Ryan, he had Sacramento and it was pretty much his team. Yeah, you kind of could say that, but he went through a bunch of coaches during that span, and then at the same time, Vlade Divac, who was their GM at the time, drafting him, stepped down a couple years later, and so it's tough playing in an environment where the coaches are always changing and the GM is always changing because it becomes a different philosophy each season. And so one season you're going in and going yeah, we're going to contend for the playoffs. Next season you're going well, we're in rebuild, and it's just flip-flopping back and forth. And so when Marvin Bagley was getting thrown into that situation as a young big, no NBA experience whatsoever yet, of course he's going to have a little bit of flaw there. And now on top of that, he did get injured quite frequently during that time. That's because the Kings were pretty much playing him 30 minutes a game every single second, not taking him out. And so it's kind of, you can see why he's not as good as what he was supposed to be. He's a Jabari Parker 2.0, but I think he just doesn't fit our current roster. I think one day he could fit, but by the time he could fit, we're going to fill that spot with a new player, and I'm fine with that new player. So realistically, getting Tobias Harris in, I think that, honestly, it's kind of bold because I think it makes us a playoff team if we add Tobias.
Okay.
Just because you look at what he can do, he's an all-around guy. He's consistently had over 20 points a game consistently for the last how many years now. He gets rebounds when you need rebounds. And then he's also a lockdown defender. He always is the guy to lock down the best player on the opposing team.
Yeah.
No matter what, you look at the 76ers this past year, and the last couple of years with him, he's always been that guy that's shut down all the big name players coming up against them. So I don't mind him coming in. Plus, he'd be a great role model for Asar Thompson and any of these younger Pistons because he's played in Detroit before. He knows the environment. He loves Detroit. He didn't even want to get traded in the first place. All thanks to Stan Van Gundy. We don't like you. But thank you for allowing us to get Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren, pretty much our entire roster now. So thank you for that.
That's a good point.
But you still suck. But no, I think Tobias would take us to another level again. And I think he'd be better with us now than he was initially, and that's kind of a hot take.
Yeah, make sure to comment below if you want to see former Detroit Piston Tobias Harris make a return this season by the trade deadline. We'd love to know what your thoughts are on that because, you know, we always kind of have an affinity for former Pistons players. We always like to play against them. For some reason, they always play great against us whenever, you know, former Pistons match up against the Pistons. They just always give us buckets. But I do like the point of maybe bringing in a guy like Tobias Harris because your point of him being a good role model for Asar Thompson is just absolutely terrific, I think. And then also Tobias thrives at the 3-point line. Asar Thompson showing that it's going to take some work for him to grow in that category. Bringing in a guy like Tobias Harris, having Joe Harris around him, having those two guys around Asar Thompson at the small forward position is a great move because those guys are constantly putting up threes in the gym. It forces guys like Asar Thompson to have that 3-point shooting culture around him, and that's going to be crucial for him to thrive at the NBA level. I definitely like the point of bringing in a guy like Tobias Harris. You know, thinking about guys around the NBA, and we're talking about, you know, fan proposal trades. Is there a specific guy other than Tobias Harris in the NBA that you would like to bring to the Detroit Pistons now that we kind of have some time to talk about it? Because, you know, we always talk about dealing out guys like Bojan and Killian. Those guys, if we traded them, could bring in some hot commodities. Is there a name that comes to mind right away?
Honestly, no, because in my opinion, there's a reason why those trades haven't taken place yet, and that's because we'd have to give up more. And with our current roster and our core, there is not one guy that I'm sitting there going like, yeah, let's give him up for that guy. The only players right now that I would trade are Bojan, Marvin Bagley, Isaiah Livers, and then possibly Killian. I don't want to trade Killian.
Just for the right piece.
I think Killian still has a very high ceiling. I think it'd be wrong for us to give up on him right now. But the reason why I think he is on the trade block has nothing to do with us giving up on him. It has more to do with, well, we're not getting a first round pick for Bojan, so let's see what we can get for Bojan and Killian Hayes. Can we get a first round pick then? Because I think if that's the case, then we was like, okay, then I might consider that. But I think it's just to see what everybody thinks of Killian right now, just to see if there is any value there in trading him to acquire a first round pick along with Bojan. But when you look at a roster, I'm not complaining about it at all. There's not one guy that I'm sitting there going, oh, we need to trade him. Okay, well there's one guy, and that's Isaiah Livers. But besides that point, when you look at our core of Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, Asar Thompson, there's no complaints there.
No.
Like,
I agree.
all of them obviously need to work on their game still. Cade is far superior than the rest of them, but all of them are still good in the right sense. So obviously keep that 5 going. You don't need to make any changes there. And honestly, James Wiseman does not need to go either. So those 6 don't need to go anywhere. Otherwise, the rest of the roster, obviously the addition of Monte Morris and Joe Harris are big ones.
Yep.
I don't mind them staying in the team. But that's only if they're helping us win or just being good role models in general for our team going forward. But there's not one guy that I'm sitting there going like, oh, I wish he was playing with us because, I could sit here and go like, yeah, Luka Doncic is one of my favorite players in the NBA. Obviously, I want him to play for the Pistons. But what would we have to give up to get a guy like that, of that caliber of player? Not just him, he's just an example of it. Like, what would you have to give up for Joel Embiid? Not saying I want Joel Embiid on the Pistons because I love Jalen Duren, James Wiseman, and Isaiah Stewart. But what would you have to give up to get these guys? And the easy answer is you'd have to give up pretty much your entire team. Like, you look at this last trade that we were just talking about. The Clippers getting James Harden, the 2029 first-round pick. But then the 76ers are getting, four players and 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
Like, that's essentially what it would take for the Pistons to get like a Luka Doncic or other players kind of like that. And those 4 players wouldn't be bums. Those would be like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, James Wiseman, and then 2 first-round picks. That's what it would have to be. So there's not a lot of guys out there that I'm sitting there going, yeah, I want him.
Right.
The only one that I'm sitting there going like, yeah, I want him is Tobias. And this trade to me out of the other 3 is probably the most realistic one.
Well, that will do it for episode number 38. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to leave a comment below on what your thoughts were of these fan proposed trades. We searched Twitter far and wide to find these tweets, so let us know what you think about what the Pistons community is giving out as far as trade proposals. Also, make sure to like and subscribe, and we appreciate you guys for watching. Also, this Wednesday, we have a special edition episode of our reactions to Pistons fans' tweets. So make sure to be on the lookout for this Wednesday in our special episode, and we are so excited to see what that episode brings. See you guys on Wednesday. Peace.